Welcome to Reiki Banashi, a podcast where we talk about Reiki in a simple way. I'm your host Inina. I'm a practitioner and teacher, Shihan of Jikiden Reiki, and through this space I share thoughts and reflections with you. Today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Dr. Maria Danilichev, founder of San Diego Reiki. She's a practicing medical doctor with more than 20 years of experience. Over the course of her medical career, Dr. Danilichev has seen a lot, from being one of the first responders during 9/11 to becoming one of the very few quadruple board-certified physicians in the US. Her expertise spans the field of internal medicine, clinical research, geriatrics, and hospice and palliative medicine. And in addition to her extensive knowledge of Western medicine, she is the only medical doctor in the US who is certified to practice and teach Jikiden Reiki. So I'm thrilled to share this conversation with you. So make yourself comfortable and let's get started.
Good morning, good evening.
Good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning for you. Buonasera here.
Buonasera.
Dr. Danilichev, is that right? The way I pronounced it.
Yes, that's correct, Dr. Danilichev.
Dr. Danilichev, Yoko. So welcome to Reiki Banashi. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you with us today. And o genki desu ka? So how are you?
Genki desu, okage-sama de.
Genki desu.
Genki desu ka?
Genki desu, genki desu. Atsui desu. It's very hot here. I don't know about you.
Yeah, here it's pretty warm too.
Yeah, I guess that's the moment we're in August, and that's that's how it goes all around the world. So, Dr. Danilichev or Maria, I don't know how you prefer me to.
Yeah, Maria is easier,
Maria.
probably.
All right. So we've met in Kyoto directly at the Jikiden Reiki Institute back in April 2023. So it's already 2 years ago.
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah, so, and that was an incredible seminar of Tadao Yamaguchi sensei with so many students and teachers from all over the world. And yeah, you came with, I think, 3 of your students.
Yes.
Yeah, they were doing their own Shihankaku training, right?
Mhm.
And I was doing my Shihankaku training as well. And I remember receiving so many reiju from probably 15 teachers, something like that. That was
something like that, yes.
incredible, mind-blowing,
It's
and
powerful experience.
it was, right? And bonding as well, because
Yes.
yeah, I guess learning with our sensei and then gather with our community is always like being with family, right?
It's a beautiful experience in so many different ways. It's healing too, even if we're in the process of learning. It is also healing just being there. It's such a just incredible place, Jikiden Reiki Institute.
It is. It's quite magical to be there. Also, historically, it's like where everything happened with Chiyoko Sensei. So
Yes.
it's not just a story. You're in the house, and that
Yes.
makes it so wonderful. Huh?
Literally connecting to the roots directly.
Absolutely. This is beautiful. And yeah, so Maria, you're a medical doctor
Yes,
with
that's correct.
more than 20 years of experience, if I read on your
Yes, that's correct.
website.
Yes.
And so you're also a Jikiden Reiki Shihan, and if I'm right, the only medical doctor who is certified and teaches Jikiden Reiki in the US.
I believe so. In the
Right,
US, I
this
think
is
so. Maybe North
amazing.
America.
This
Yeah.
this is really great. And so you're the founder also of San Diego Reiki.
Yes, that's correct.
And so you're practicing and teaching in California, but you were in San Diego and now you moved recently to North California.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, so now I'm in Northern California, but fortunately, we have so many Jikiden Reiki students. Some of them have become teachers, so they're continuing the practice in San Diego while I'm in California, which is amazing. But I am coming actually on at the end of August to teach Okuden. So I
Oh,
do come to
great.
San Diego periodically.
Amazing. So you're gonna be doing a few go and backs every now and
Yes,
then. Yeah,
yes.
that leaves you the choice and also to stay connected with the beautiful
And
students.
I'm also hoping to teach and practice Reiki here in Northern California and introduce it to the local communities. So in San Diego, a lot of people have heard of Reiki, but here where I am, a lot of people never heard of it. Don't know what it is.
Oh, well, that's exciting then. It's
Yes.
something, new to introduce to people. Wonderful. And talking about Reiki, actually, maybe just to start, how would you describe Reiki to someone that never heard about it? And in a simple way, how does it work, for example?
So I think there's there's a good way. I guess coming from my medical background, I like to be very specific. So I want to say that there's a concept of Reiki energy and
Mm.
also Reiki method and techniques. So we can separate the two.
Yeah.
And Reiki energy, basically it's an ancient concept. And to say it simply, it is literally just tapping into the energy of nature. That's the way I would describe it. So the practitioner is able to connect to the energy of nature in a profound way. And then by placing their hands on a person receiving Reiki, that person receives that extra energy boost. And then using that energy, starts self-healing themselves faster than normal without it. So I would say how I would describe the energy part, but also the technique. And the
Yeah.
technique is relatively new. So it was
Mm.
established by Mikao Usui about only 100 years ago. So a lot of times when you go online, you see Reiki, an ancient Japanese method. So the method itself is not ancient. So the energy concept is ancient, but the technique is relatively recent. It's only 100 years old, but it's very, very powerful. So using Reiki technique, we can help promote that natural energy flow in a person and help them self-heal themselves in remarkable ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's a beautiful technique using the energy of nature, if you will.
So it's really at 360 degrees. It's not just focusing on one side of a person. It's
Yes.
really the whole body, mind, and spirit of the person. Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. And it's sometimes it's very hard to explain that to someone that is new to it. And so
Mm.
thank you for explaining us this. And yeah, and then maybe I'd love to go back in time. Um, yeah, what's been your path so far? First, maybe as a medical doctor, and how did Reiki come into your
Mhm.
life? Mm.
So it came into my life around 2004 when I was practicing physician. I was working in a hospice setting,
Mm.
um, becoming hospice and palliative physician. And in that setting, holistic modalities are a lot more common
Mm.
compared to regular Western medicine, let's say hospitals or disciplines. So in a hospice setting, we had acupuncture, healing touch, aromatherapy, Reiki,
Oh.
music therapy, pet therapy, so all kinds of complementary modalities. So
Mm.
that was my first introduction to Reiki. And at that point, I didn't realize there are different styles. I just heard, oh, Reiki, and that's
Mm.
all I knew. But one thing I've noticed that um, these modalities were helping patients significantly. And my first eye-opening experience was actually with acupuncture, where
Mm.
someone had severe swelling of his legs due to lymphoma, to the
Mm.
point where he could barely move his legs. And we've tried everything we could with Western medicine. And it was not just me, it was a team of doctors, team of other healthcare professionals, and nothing was helping. And then an acupuncturist came in. In fact, it was a student acupuncturist.
Mm.
And overnight, the swelling resolved.
Oh,
And it was striking. And there were no other things that have changed.
Mm.
So scientifically, it was hard to ignore what in front of us. And this prompted me to pause a little bit with these modalities because normally in Western medicine, and this is my thinking as well, we only do what's proven by clinical trials. We don't do things just
Mm.
because we feel like trying a medication or trying a modality and believing in it. So everything is done based on clinical research. With acupuncture, there's the most research for the complementary modalities, but usually most research focuses on pain.
Yeah.
And we know that it's helpful with pain.
Mm.
And that's how most Western medicine physicians approach acupuncture. Okay, if somebody has a pain of some kind, we can refer potentially to acupuncture. However, we never think of using it for other conditions.
All right. Yes, there's this
And
focus on pain, huh? When
just because that
accepting those modalities, it's mainly on pain. Do you think?
just because that's what's proven by research, not because of any
Right. Okay.
reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And lack of knowledge on our part, because we have very superficial knowledge and almost no understanding of any of the holistic modalities. I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you. So again, we go off of what's proven by clinical trials. And this moment when I saw swelling of the legs completely disappear overnight made me pause and realize, wait a minute, what about other conditions that acupuncture could be used for? And it could be more effective than Western medicine. And again, this was an isolated incident, so I'm not claiming that acupuncture cures everything, but it was an eye-opening moment for me. And then after that, I started paying more attention to how these holistic modalities affect my patients. Because before we were open to it, and from this perspective, if the patient wants it, we're providing it. And that's the extent of majority of Western medicine physicians' approach to holistic modalities. If it's as long as it's not harmful, we're okay with it. But then I started pausing because in an inpatient hospice unit, most people think that maybe there's nothing that's going on. We're maybe just holding a patient's hand, which is a very important part of what we do, of course. But people have a lot of symptoms. Their conditions don't go away when they go to hospice. There's more suffering, in fact. So a lot of times it's a really long, busy day addressing pain, maybe on an hourly basis, if somebody is delirious or any kind of symptoms. It's almost like intensive care unit, but for symptoms out of control. So it's very, very busy for physicians who are working in inpatient hospice units. And so usually we don't even have time to pay attention to anything beyond what's a part of our physician duties. And but because of this experience, I started paying attention more. I started making that time. And I've realized that, let's say, a Reiki practitioner goes into a patient's room, and the patient might be in distress, agitated, or in pain. And then afterwards, they're calm, they're relaxed. And this was going on for years, for about 10 years of me observing how holistic modalities improve my patients' well-being on a significant level. So it became beyond any kind of reasonable doubt that these modalities do provide, do help on a significant level. And this prompted me to look into learning one of those modalities. And I looked into different things because acupuncture is the most proven. Again, of course, going from the medical, scientific mindset, I thought, okay, let me see if I can learn acupuncture. And because it was so powerful and, again, most proven modality. So I looked into that, and it would have, for me to learn it properly, of course, there are courses for physicians in acupuncture, but they're not they're not very, not as in depth as proper learning acupuncture properly. So I looked into that, and it was it would have meant that I would have to quit my job to study for a few more years after studying for many, many years. And I decided, let me try with something more simple, like Reiki. And I apologize for such a long story, but that's how
it's very interesting.
To Reiki and learning it. And in fact, when I first learned it, or first was ready to learn it, I came across a class which was actually pretty far from me, but it got canceled last minute. So as a result, I ended up taking a different class, which ended up being Jikiden Reiki.
Oh, so from the very beginning, you had this canceled class that brought you to Jikiden Reiki. This is amazing.
Which was 5 minutes away from where I lived. So.
Then that's also very nice. Right.
Yeah, so that was my journey and an introduction to Reiki. So
Mm.
my approach was 100% scientific. So it was not because I believed in Reiki or I believed in these modalities. It's through observation. So observational evidence of their effectiveness over a course of about 10 years, to the point that it was undeniable that yes, there are indeed
There's
effective. I don't think it's a placebo. And again, just wanted to know, what are these people doing to my patients that make them feel so good?
But this is
Scientific
amazing.
curiosity.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Actually, I wanted to ask you something about that because you're trained in this such a scientific rigor. So
Yeah.
how was it to open to something like Reiki for you? Like has your practice changed the way you care for your patients, the way you understand maybe illness in general?
I would say this is actually a very interesting question.
Mm.
Let me think of how to best answer it. I think the main way my practice has changed
Mm.
is because the Reiki, practicing Reiki and learning it more in depth as a teacher has changed me.
No, that's
And as a result, the way I approach illness, my patients is a little bit different.
yeah.
Maybe with more, not to say I wasn't compassionate before, but maybe a
Hmm.
different level of compassion.
Right.
Different
Mm.
level of compassion, a different level of understanding each patient's hopes and goals, especially with end of life care when patients don't have many options,
Yeah.
to be able to put yourself in their shoes of maybe wanting something that's not possible or
Mm.
not wanting something that is possible and helpful,
Mm.
how to address their needs and fully understand them on a deeper level.
Mm.
And also understand, I guess, suffering, even though we're taught in hospice palliative medicine that suffering is not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual also. So
Mm.
fortunately, in Western medicine, palliative care, we are taught that. Beyond palliative care, not so much, but in palliative care, we are
Mm.
on that level. But with seeing how Reiki can help ease that suffering on all
Mm.
levels at the same time,
Yeah.
also just opened my eyes a little bit on what's possible beyond Western medicine.
Wow.
And I think just it's interesting as a practitioner of Reiki, it's very self-healing.
Yeah.
So as you're more self-healed, then
Mm.
it's easier to be providing any kind of service to anyone, whether it's
Mm.
individuals, community. You're able to do it with a full heart, and
Yeah.
not um,
On a superficial level, it really
not
goes
just on a
deep, huh?
superficial level.
Mm.
You're able to fully be there, be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's really it's not only for the others, it's really something that works for you whenever you work on someone. So well, talking about that, has there been any moment when Reiki had a particularly deep or transformative impact on you, maybe personally, emotionally, or even spiritually, maybe?
Uh, I think again it's of course there were moments, exact moments where it deepened my spiritual connection,
Mm.
but at the same time it's also slow process. It's a natural slow process, not something that you have to seek out necessarily. It just naturally happens. And the more you
Mm.
practice Reiki, the more naturally you become, um, I guess, again, there's different ways to label it, and I don't like labeling
Yeah,
this, but
yeah,
connect
yeah.
to God, to source, to your higher self. There's different ways to, again,
Mm.
the label on this. Um, in terms of specific moments, I think maybe I'll mention how it has changed me. Not only it added some calm and comfort to myself, and also I was in a couple of car accidents, and Reiki really helped me recover.
Oh,
So physically, That
Yeah.
was definitely remarkably helpful. And I'll mention something else to remind me
Yeah.
about my own healing journey with Reiki. But also spiritually, I feel like my intuitive gifts have heightened, something I'd never realized I had. Both of my parents are physicists. I always grew up with the scientific approach as the normal way to
Oh.
approach life. So never thought of myself as intuitive at all. But through Reiki, those gifts were, I guess, uncovered and discovered in
Mm.
myself. And in a way, and if you think of medicine, what is how's what separates science and the art of medicine? The science is just learning um, what's in the background of illness and disease and
Mm.
treatments.
Yeah.
But the art is the bedside manner, connecting
Mm.
to patients, and also some medical intuition to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine
So
that.
that has, I believe, that's something that I've always had, but learning Reiki has helped me. I
Mm.
guess that gift, intuitive gift, has been
Mm.
revealed more,
Yeah. Empowered
helping
a
me
bit.
as a
Yeah.
doctor. And I
Mm.
don't mean to, I'm not guessing intuitively
No, of course
throughout
not.
the patient. But when we're trying to figure out the diagnosis, it's having that sense, a
Mm.
deep down sense of what it is most likely, what the most likely diagnosis is. It's very helpful. So
And this
it's just,
is
I guess, heightened the
mm.
art of medical practitioner in me.
Deepen maybe even, right?
Deepen, yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, to have both sides to that's very helpful for yeah, to help the patients, I guess, right?
Yeah.
To have that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'd like to come back to what I mentioned about my own healing journey. Actually, I'm surprised that I
Sure.
forgot about it when you first asked me. One of the things that happened to me years ago during 9/11, I was one of the first responders.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's right. I
actually
read that.
just a few blocks from the World Trade Center. That's somewhere I actually lived there and worked there, so I used to go for jogs in that area all the time.
This is
And
incredible.
when 9/11 happened, it was, of course, we had to do what we had to do as medical professionals in helping people with
Hmm.
injuries, inhalation injuries. And again, when you're in the moment, you're focused, you're not really thinking about yourself, you're not thinking about how
Yeah.
all of this is affecting you. And of course, there was in the building where I lived next door to the hospital, there was no electricity, no running water. So we actually lived at the hospital for a period of time because it had generators,
Yeah.
etc. So it was very challenging time. But at the same time, again, as I mentioned, we didn't really think about ourselves. But what ended up happening afterwards, because that whole area was evacuated, and there's,
Mm.
anytime a military truck would drive by, the whole building would shake, and it was very startling because
Yeah.
if is there another plane coming or what's happening? So afterwards, I developed panic attacks when flying. So after
Mm.
9/11. So before then, I really enjoyed traveling, and afterwards it was excruciating. So like anytime I would
Oh.
get an airplane, a takeoff, landing, any turbulence, it would put me in a panic attack. And fortunately, as a physician, I read about it in textbooks. Of course, I know what that is, but there's no way to control it, if it's
No.
happening to you. And it was debilitating. And at the beginning, I was in denial about it because I've never had an issue. But then it became
Yeah.
literally every single flight, I'm in a state of panic. And I've tried everything:
Mm.
self-hypnosis, meditation, listening to calming music, and
Mm.
literally nothing was working. And a lot of times I would travel for work where I would have to get off the plane and go to a conference.
Mm.
And of course, I couldn't take any medications because I needed to be awake and alert.
Of course.
So it was very difficult for a number of years. And believe it or not, until I was in my Okuden training, so it's
Right.
second
Yeah.
in Reiki. And when we're practicing a healing technique to resolve any kind of mental blocks or fears, when we were practicing that technique, and I don't even know who did it for me, and I'm really grateful to that person. But literally in practice in class, after about maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, uh, without me knowing at that time, next time I was flying, I no longer had my panic attacks, and I haven't had one since. And this was just from a 10-minute practice in class, which is remarkable. And I, at the time when I was learning this technique, because obviously it's so different from anything you learn in Western medicine, I absolutely did not think I was going to do anything. I just picked fear of flying as an issue because that's something that I had, but absolutely did not expect for it to work or help. It seemed medically impossible. And so there was 100% not a placebo effect. And there's nothing else that changed other than that practice Reiki.
Yeah, well, this is mind-blowing, right? Those techniques are so powerful and very deeply healing. It really works. Wonderful.
Honestly, if somebody else would have told me that they were healed by 10 minutes of Reiki from something like this, I probably wouldn't have believed them.
Yeah,
And
being
I just thought
skeptical.
it's impossible. But because I personally experienced it, and again, with zero placebo effect, because I absolutely did not believe it was going to help.
Of course, it was something even new to you. So
New
if
to
you
me,
were
I was very
doing
skeptical of learning.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah. So also, I didn't know how much you were involved in the 9/11 uh, people that were injured. That's quite it can be quite a traumatic moment as a physician to be there, right?
Yes, it was something I can't compare to any other experiences I've had. Just so many patients, and for many of them, even if they were not injured, they were in such state of shock.
Absolutely.
Some patients, they just came in because they just ran to safety, and this was the nearest hospital.
Yeah.
And even though they were not injured, they would refuse to leave because they were just so traumatized from what they've experienced.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's but yeah, it's amazing that with this practice of 10 minutes, really like the
Yes.
this traumatic event and these panic attacks that can be really, really, yeah, difficult to make you live a normal life, like to have your normal
100%.
rhythm.
Yeah.
So that came
And
back.
again, it's something that I've never had before, and it was just so unexpected that the panic attacks even happened. I was, trying to think of how did that happen, because why specifically the airplanes? Because usually PTSD shows up in other ways. Not it was just surprising how it came out.
Yeah.
But it was resolved fully within just after just one session. So next time I got on a plane, and ever since I never had an issue. So that was I think
This
it
is
was
impressive.
2013 or 2014. So I've never had
Ah,
an issue since.
this is amazing. So
And
you're
no
flying again.
medications.
And no
No
medications.
medications. No
Absolutely. This
side
is
effects.
no side effects. Yeah, that's another thing that is amazing, huh?
Yeah.
With Reiki.
Yeah.
Well, then I have a question that a lot of people ask me, and I would love to know how you would
Mhm.
answer that. So, can Reiki cure any kind of diseases? And does it have limitations? So
Mhm.
that's one thing.
Yeah,
And
that's a question.
yeah,
So I would say, well, first, just for legal reasons,
of course.
I want to mention the
Disclaimer.
word cure we have to be very careful about, because technically, legally, we can't really use that term for when we're discussing complementary modalities, especially in the United
Uh-huh.
States. In other
All
countries, we
right.
have different rules.
Mm.
But as far as it being helpful, so far I have not seen any limitations. It
Mm.
could be helpful for physical conditions, mental, emotional conditions, um, trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, and also for anything spiritual as well.
Mm.
So far, I haven't seen any limitations. I would say it's really interesting as a physician, because a
Mm.
lot of times a patient comes in to me as a doctor, and I prescribe something for what's bothering them,
Mm.
and there may be a result, there may not be a result. We might need to try something else. But with Reiki, the vast majority of times, I would say over 90%, there is
Oh,
impact.
this
There
is
is a positive
amazing.
impact. Uh, Sometimes it's not necessarily exactly what someone came in for. So let's say if somebody is coming in for headaches and we're
Mm.
giving Reiki for headaches, uh, and maybe headaches are not resolved instantly, but the person's stress levels decrease first.
Mm.
Or if somebody, similarly, if somebody is coming in with dizziness and dizziness is there, but the headaches are gone, or
Mm.
somebody is coming in for stress and then now their back pain is better. So it has some unintended positive consequences.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well,
sometimes people may not expect that. They want specific
mm.
outcome, but it's not always exactly like that. But usually the desired outcome is also a part of it, of course, but sometimes it may take more sessions.
Yeah, yeah, I guess healing is also working on so many layers, right?
Yes.
So that explains a little bit probably what you said. But it's amazing how as Reiki is working really on the body to heal, but the body itself starts to heal itself, huh, right?
Exactly.
So the body has almost, I guess, I don't know if you can agree on that, has some kind of natural intelligence that knows where to start from, right?
Yes, I think it just honestly just happens naturally.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's almost, I think a lot of times when people think of these um, modalities or
Mm,
energy healing, we're trying to be too scientific or too, I guess, we want to have answers of
yeah.
how it works. But I would say sometimes taking a step back and thinking that it just works naturally.
Mm,
And yes, it may be explained scientifically at some point, no doubt. But at the same time, it's sometimes not knowing the exact mechanism of how it works. Just like there are a lot of medications we prescribe, we don't know the exact mechanism of how they work.
that's very interesting as
Yeah.
well, right? Like there's a lot of that. So why do we accept it more with medical, products and not with energy
Yes.
healing, for example? That's an interesting way of thinking, no? Well, I was about also to ask you if you think that we will be able to explain Reiki scientifically one day.
I do
Mm,
believe we will be able to,
mm,
but it's one of those things that there's several layers of scientific research.
mm,
There's one side of clinical research that focuses specifically on addressing a specific problem.
mhm.
So let's
Okay,
say Reiki for arthritis, or Reiki for headaches, or Reiki for back pain. So
right.
typical clinical research is
It's
for a specific
specific.
indication,
Mm,
very narrow,
mm,
and an ideal case that has to be placebo controlled. So having a group of people who are receiving Reiki and a group of people who are receiving fake Reiki, then with lots of people participating, not just a couple,
Yeah.
then seeing the results and then repeating the same exact method
Mhm.
elsewhere
Yeah.
and doing it several times. So
Mm,
to have that done, it would be for a very specific indication. So just for headaches and just for specific type of headaches,
mm,
and then or just for back pain.
mm,
The alternative to a placebo could be standard interventions. So let's say if somebody has back pain, we use standard interventions, whether it's medications, physical therapy, etc., versus Reiki.
mm.
But then again, it has to be repeated at different place, and ideally there should be no financial benefits or some kind of secondary interest for anyone
Of
who's
course.
conducting this.
Mm,
And so the ideal funding would come from NIH or something like that, some
mm.
kind of government funding as opposed to private source to eliminate financial bias.
Okay.
So yes, so to
Yeah,
make
that's
these simple advancements in clinical trials, it takes probably hundreds of thousands of dollars per clinical trial.
right.
somebody has to get the grant, somebody has to be well trained in research in addition to Reiki, or again, which is hard to find. And then it would take decades to prove one simple thing, let's say headaches or arthritis of the knee or any kind of condition. So it would take a really long time and a lot of financial resources. So that's the clinical research that studies whether or not Reiki is helpful for specific conditions. Then there is a potentially non-clinical research that can look into the Reiki as energy, because I think for many scientifically minded people, when they hear the word energy healing or energy therapy, it automatically makes them roll their eyes.
Yeah.
It's the energy that no one understands what it is. So it seems like people who don't know anything about physics or energy are using these terms without any understanding what they're talking about, and therefore it's not possible. So for physicists and scientists who study energy, if they were to explore what is it exactly, because right now we don't really know what it is, and it hasn't been properly studied. I know has been some research, but how can you measure something that you don't know what it is? If you measure, say, temperature, or if you measure from a practitioner's hand, or if you measure other kinds of energies, what are we measuring exactly?
Yeah, it's hard,
so
huh?
but hopefully, eventually,
Eventually.
on both of these levels, direct clinical research with patients participating and more physics-based research, I think eventually we'll definitely have an answer. Because what is science? Science is exploration and trying to understand nature, right? So this is what science is. And
yeah, it is actually, right?
And Reiki is, Reiki energy is a part of nature. We just don't understand it. It hasn't been adequately studied. But if there's funding, over time, I'm sure we'll have these answers, just like there are answers for all kinds of questions, whether it's electricity and magnetism or gravity. Again, it's something that was not understood in the past, but now we understand it.
Exactly.
Maybe there'll be more answers even in those subjects, because again, science is not a stationary field. It's an evolving field. It's a discovery. So I'm sure that, I don't know when, probably not in our lifetime, but I'm sure that Reiki will be explained at some point and accepted by the scientific community as well.
Yeah, that's something also that I would love to see, a more open to scientific world, right? And yeah, so have you ever integrated Reiki into a medical process? I guess that's what you said before with your patients, right? So, for example, you said maybe helping with pain, stress, or during difficult moments. Did you see any maybe any remarkable cases where you saw Reiki working specifically on patients?
So it's an interesting question. So until now, my medical practice was fully separate from Reiki. And
So you
because of
divided
the
it, yeah?
laws in the United States, you
Of
cannot
course.
refer to yourself.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I would see patients who could definitely benefit from Reiki, but I couldn't refer them to myself. So the only thing I could say, if when a Western medical health system has failed them to some degree, whether or not they've explored alternative modalities such as acupuncture, because that's the easiest,
Right.
For most patients to accept, acupuncture or other modalities like healing touch or Reiki. So I could mention something like that. And a lot of patients would say no. Some people said, oh, they've considered it. Some people have tried it. So I would encourage my patients who don't have any answers from Western medicine, no solutions to their suffering, to explore those modalities. But of course, being mindful of the practitioner, because yes, there are charlatans who are claiming to be healers.
Of course.
And sometimes these patients end up finding me eventually, but this is on their own. They find me,
Okay.
that's okay. But interestingly, for people who come to me directly to Reiki, I've seen remarkable results. So to give you an example, there was a client who came in with many years of severe vertigo where the room is spinning and for days he can't function. And after, I think it was about 5 sessions, it fully resolved. Or someone could come in with severe back pain for months and months and months, going to doctors, chiropractors, no results. And then one Reiki session, back pain is resolved. Or there's a client that had severe neuropathy from chemotherapy. She couldn't feel anything with her hands. She could touch a hot plate and not feel it. So it was extremely debilitating. She was in a lot of pain, crying even from pain, being sedated with medications to help control it. And then that took much longer, but maybe after about 6 months or so of focusing specifically on neuropathy, it got fully resolved, no pain, able to feel, and it's really remarkable. And then also was able to come off all her medications through her physician.
Impressive.
I was not the one discontinuing her medications, of course, but so yeah, so I've seen remarkable results, and also mental and spiritual levels. Sometimes people come in when they feel stuck in life, or having difficulties in some way, heartbreak, other challenges, and then 1 or 2 Reiki sessions, they feel so much better. Their life gets literally transformed. Also, smoking. I've seen people quit smoking after many years, after just 1 session, or addictions. So all kinds of things that Reiki can help with.
Yeah. So it's really, really amazing how many the range of healing you can provide for anyone. There is a solution, or at least a help that is possible to receive. This is amazing. Yeah. And now that there is something quite curious, because you mentioned a lot about the scientifical and medical world. How does the medical world around you respond to your Reiki practice? And do people tend to be curious or skeptical, or maybe open sometimes?
So it's all of the above. When I first learned Reiki, even though I learned it 100% of scientific curiosity, it was not because I believed in it or because somebody told me about Reiki. It was literally of observation and scientific curiosity. Initially, so that was around 2013. Initially, I was not sharing it with my colleagues, other medical providers, that I'm doing it, just because for most of them it would have been strange.
Yeah.
Honestly, even though my approach was scientific, it would have been strange for them. And also, when I first was learning it, the modalities, the techniques, a lot of them seemed strange to me too. I was not just buying into them automatically. When I was a scientist at heart, I was the way I approached it is, I'm going to apply these techniques exactly how I learned them, and see case after case after case if it's helping or it's not helping. And that's when I'm going to draw my scientific conclusion, whether it's real or not.
Right.
Because scientifically, at the surface level, when I first learned it, my belief was that there's no way this could be doing anything. But as I practiced it, as I learned it, again, this is part of scientific discovery. You have a hypothesis, you put it to a test, and after repeated experiment, even though it was not an experiment, but repeated observation, you draw your scientific conclusion. Does it work or does it not work? So for most physicians that I work with, they've never had a chance to have their own scientific discovery of Reiki. So of course, for them, it would be very strange to be doing it. If you're not exposed to it, why would you even learn something like that? So again, at the beginning, I didn't share that I was doing it. But eventually, after my scientific proof, after years of observational evidence, then I became more open to sharing it with my colleagues. And I'll be honest with you, for some of them, even people who are, let's say, I've met a doctor who is very well known in functional medicine. It was very interesting to hear his reaction to me doing Reiki. He asked me, who is my ideal patient, ideal client?
Ah,
And I mentioned that literally demographically, there's no one. It's anyone.
of
It's
course.
anyone who has something that's bothering them.
Mhm.
And he was specifically interested in, well, is it someone who drives a VW Bug, or is it somebody who drives a Porsche? It was kind of an interesting approach that
Mm.
he thought of. And it made me understand that for some doctors, they may view someone like myself, if I'm doing Reiki, uh, is it some kind of gimmick to make money, perhaps?
Ah, right. Mm.
So who's your target clientele? And so it was very um,
Yeah.
surprising and maybe unpleasant to
Mm.
hear that view.
Mm.
And I think some other physicians would have a view, well, if you're doing something so not science-based, you must be crazy a little bit, or strange, to put it mildly. I would say that would be probably the approach of most doctors.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
either are a little weird, or you're trying to use this as some kind of money making
Mm.
scheme, something like that.
Mm.
But I can assure you that this is absolutely not the case. Again, my approach was not out of belief, but out of scientific experience.
Yeah.
And then, financially, if the way I view it, if we offer Reiki and it's not helpful, our clients can receive their money back after the first
Mm.
session for sure. And then, but usually it's always helpful.
Yeah, that's the thing,
So
right?
no one ever asks for their money back. And again, it's not for the purpose of making money. Yes, the practitioners, they're spending their time and effort to be there for our clients. So it's a way for our clients to say thank you. So if
Yeah,
there's a
exactly.
charge, then it's not out of, okay, let's make money. No, that's not at
Mm.
all the
No, it's an
approach.
exchange, right? Like it's
It's an exchange, and
yeah.
and again, we work, if someone cannot afford it, let's say if somebody needs a lot of Reiki and they can't afford it, we're always willing to work with people to make it
Mm.
affordable. We have all kinds of ways to try to make it affordable.
Exactly.
So yes, it's neither to neither a gimmick of some sort, and again, it's not out of weirdness, but out of literally scientific observation that I'm doing it. And in today's world, so this was many years ago, so I think this dialogue took place about maybe 10, 15 years ago, but now
Mm.
um, a lot of providers who've been exposed to these modalities, they get excited.
Yeah.
I just heard, just literally yesterday, somebody asked me, or the day before, I heard you do Reiki. Is that true? They're so excited. So I would say amongst maybe more holistically minded providers, and also new doctors, new generation of doctors, people are more open.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's I feel like it's changing a little bit. Um,
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, right? If it's
yes.
opening a little more. And yeah, I think there always will be people that are
Yes.
skeptical. That's part of it. We don't need to how do you say convince someone that
Yes.
isn't.
And actually, I'd like to explain perhaps where the skepticism is coming
Aha,
from.
yeah.
On one hand, it's for sure because we only prescribe what's been proven by clinical research. That's one.
Right.
And the other side is that the only holistic healing that we indirectly come across
Mm.
is charlatans. Because if someone goes to a real healer, real practitioner with Reiki or another field
Mm.
that really resolves a condition, then that patient never ends up coming to a medical doctor for
That's
healing.
right. Yeah.
So as a result, we don't see those cases. So
Mm.
people who are truly healed by a real healer, we don't see them. A lot of
Yeah.
times when people improve, they don't tell us that they use a holistic modality because they don't want to be judged, because they will be judged most of the
Yeah.
time. Or maybe even if they're not going to be judged, they're worried they're going to be judged by their doctor.
Mm. Mm-mm.
So when people get improved with real holistic modalities that really work, we don't know anything about it. But what we do see is patients who go to fake healers and
That
then
we
get
see.
harmed.
Yeah.
Every doctor has had experiences where Western medicine was recommended, especially for things like treatment of cancer. This is a common
Oh, yeah.
theme.
Mm.
The patient refuses Western medicine treatment. They go to so-called holistic healer, and their health gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's when we see them. And doctors are patients' advocates, and we feel for those patients who are suffering as a result of a fake healer. That's the only cases we see.
Yeah.
And as a result, naturally, physicians are very skeptical because
Yeah.
we're worried about charlatans taking advantage. And I've seen a number of cases of patients whose health was destroyed as a result of some fake holistic healing that they believed in. A lot of times it starts off as something being free, then it's expensive, and then but again, a lot of times it not only doesn't work, it results in harm.
Yeah. Well, that's the very sad side of the holistic world, right? That there is this thing that then completely destroys also the image of what's working. And
Exactly.
yeah. But that
But
explains a lot the skeptical side
yes,
that medical doctors may have. Of course, if you see as a result
yes,
so much harm in your patients, of course you will try to defend them and maybe
yes,
not believe in
100%.
that. Yeah. That explains a lot. It's true. I didn't think that through. Yeah, of course, skepticism comes from something.
Yes.
It's not just from nowhere. Huh? Right, right, right. Right. And yeah, I have another question is like, is there an experience or a Reiki story in your patients mainly that particularly moved you and that you'd like to share with us?
Uh, that's a good question. I feel honestly, almost every case is
Mm,
moving
mm,
in a way because sometimes people write to me that Reiki has changed their lives completely. So
mm.
it's almost hard to pinpoint which one moved me the most. It's
Of
just
course,
when I
yeah.
see the remarkable transformations on a physical level, a mental, emotional level, it's such a drastic change that it's almost hard to decide, which case was more unique or remarkable.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think the patient I've mentioned with neuropathy, I think that was very striking in a way that I probably wouldn't have believed it myself if
mm,
I wasn't directly involved.
yeah,
But there are so many cases. Honestly,
right.
it's sorry, it's hard to come up with a one specific one. Yeah.
But this is great. It means really you had to experience you had the chance to experience so many people going through transformative healing and that worked for them. So
Yes.
this is a very good thing. Yeah.
And by the way, to come back to one of your previous questions,
Yeah.
I would like to integrate Reiki in medical practice.
Mm,
And it doesn't necessarily have to be just Reiki,
yeah.
but to have holistic modalities
Yeah.
work side by side. And it is done to some degree in integrative medicine practices, but I would say it's not as well integrated as I think it should be.
Mm,
For example, there's so many indigenous Native American practices that could be working beautifully side by side with medical care, but they're not necessarily a part of it. They're happening outside of the medical practice. But
right.
I believe these kinds of holistic practices, whether it's traditional Japanese practice like Reiki or Native American practices, if they're incorporated and working side by side, uh, then I think it would be so healing on so many different levels for patients. And I
Yeah.
think it would be also be helpful for the providers, practitioners of Western medicine, as well as the holistic practitioners to be accepted for what they do, because they
Mm,
do remarkable work, but it's somewhere I wouldn't say in hiding, but it's not,
Mm.
um, we don't, at most in our medical notes, we might mention that the patient is also seeking some natural holistic remedy or using natural holistic remedies, but it's very much in passing and not acknowledged. So I
Yeah,
just want to say that I'd love to integrate as much as possible holistic practices that do work. And again, there's a way to do it. I believe there's a way to do it so it's beneficial for our patients, because ultimately, whether as a doctor or as a holistic health provider, our goal is to help people.
there
It's the
you
same
go.
same goal.
Exactly, exactly. And that would be so wonderful to see more of that. This is
Yeah.
like a dream, no? It's a
Yes.
team. It's a
Yes.
teamwork, right? Yeah, yeah, because of course, mm, they can nourish, both practice can nourish each other and really,
Yes.
really
Exactly.
help on a whole level to
Yes.
heal and help the people, huh? Yeah.
And I hope that dialogues like we're having today, I hope it helps people see this, that, it's not one versus the other. We can work together.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can
Yeah.
work together. And I hope I can, because I'm a part of both worlds, I hope I can help bring them a little bit closer together.
Yes, yes. Continued your role as a bridge. This would be really helpful, I'm sure. And yeah, I really wish there were more medical doctors open as you are, and not only open, but that really experienced it themselves before having an opinion about it, you know?
Yes.
That's the thing. It's remarkable that you went through the whole thing, and yeah, that you integrate it in your practice. This is amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you a question, but it's not in the way that other doctors were asking you before.
Yes.
It's do you see a specific kind of people among the people who come to your Reiki
Okay.
treatments? Yeah, exactly.
So usually it's people who, I would say two major types of people. One type
Mm,
is people who went to Western medicine and it didn't help them,
mm, mm, mm,
or didn't help them enough, or maybe they were traumatized by experience with healthcare in different ways.
mm,
Um, and also people who have some kind of suffering, unresolved suffering, and they might not put their finger on what it is. Sometimes they know exactly what's bothering them, some, let's say, physical pain or heartbreak or some kind of mental emotional suffering.
mm.
So I would say those are the two major groups: people who don't have answers through Western medicine, and then the second biggest group is people who are um, something is not right, or
Mm,
they have suffering of some kind and they're looking for solutions. Occasionally we see people who just want to explore,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
try something new, or maybe someone recommended it. Once in a
Mm,
while we see people like that too.
mm.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are the
Yeah.
typical
The
people who
typical
seek
people.
Reiki.
Right. Beautiful. And yeah, you mentioned acupuncture and other kind of healing methods, but for you, what makes Jikiden Reiki special or different from other styles of Reiki or approaches?
Mhm.
Mm.
So with Jigen and Reiki, I was fortunate to learn it first. And of
Mm,
course, with my scientifically focused mind, I did explore different Reiki styles, and I'm
mhm,
self-taught in those.
mm.
Did not through some formal training, but it is the information about other Reiki styles is widely available on the internet, so it's very easy to learn these additional modalities.
That's right.
Uh, the main difference, I would say, with Jigen and Reiki is, well, first of all, if you want to go to the roots of Reiki, to the
Mm,
origins of Reiki, because that is the only Reiki style available today that you can learn that has maintained itself in Japan. So nothing got lost in translation. It's literally stayed true to its roots.
mm.
Um, Unfortunately, there's no other Reiki style that has that background that's available.
Yeah.
So
There you
if
go.
someone wants to learn the original techniques, Jigen Reiki would be the way to go, in my opinion, because a lot of things got lost in translation and a lot of techniques got dropped or added on in the West after Reiki uh, was popularized in the West in the 1980s. Um, so, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with different Reiki styles. Each modality may resonate with different people.
Yeah.
But sometimes when my Reiki students, when they ask me about it, the way I share about this is that think of different instruments like violin and a guitar. Both are string instruments. Both have a beautiful sound, but they're completely different. So if you learn one, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to,
Yeah.
play the
To
other.
play the
And
other. Yeah.
again, it's just different. It's a different instrument. Same thing with, let's say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. They have the same origins, but it's a different martial art. So in the same way, Jigen and Reiki is different from other Reiki modalities, but what sets it apart is that it's the original techniques passed down directly without modification and maintained in Japan. So again, literally nothing got lost in translation. And a lot can be lost in translation because of the particularities of the Japanese language, culture, how information is passed down. In the past, Reiki was taught in an oral tradition. So if you're not Japanese, how can you possibly remember even the basics? Because it's so deeply rooted in Japanese culture. So yeah, if anyone is curious about Reiki, I would definitely recommend learning Jigen and Reiki. Again, nothing wrong with other styles, but if you want to learn the original techniques without modifications, that Jigen and Reiki is the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree with that, of course. And yeah, I guess it's because mainly there's so many, it's like when you talk about yoga nowadays, there's so many styles. And when you want to know the roots of something and study really historically, there you go. You have Jikiden Reiki with everything that is available with an explanation, with a reason why behind. And yeah, that's so wonderful, right?
Yes, it's a beautiful practice.
It definitely is.
And also I want to mention, from the scientific side, if you look at different Reiki styles, I would say probably Usui Reiki or Usui Tibetan Reiki is the most common one that's being practiced around the world. If you think of it within the same style, each practitioner has the freedom to add, remove, modify. And so if you're conducting a clinical trial with Reiki, if you're using even the same style of Reiki, chances are each practitioner is going to be doing something slightly different. So there's absolutely no consistency with the method. So as a result, you can't really study it scientifically, because it's like, let's say if you want to compare Tylenol versus ibuprofen for headaches, or let's say Tylenol for headaches, but Tylenol, it's not just Tylenol, it's mixed in with other medications. So you can't really study that. With Jigen and Reiki, it's very consistent from practitioner to practitioner. It's passed down directly without modification. So each teacher, to the best of their ability, is sharing it exactly the same. So that's the only Reiki modality that can be accurately studied scientifically. Because if you study a mixture of things, then how can you study? It's like studying, saying that you're studying oranges, but you're studying
different
all kinds of combination of different fruits.
Yeah. Exactly.
In a way, it makes it very difficult, even for the most common Reiki styles under the same umbrella, same name, Usui Reiki, but the techniques could be vastly different from practitioners.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true that with Jikiden Reiki, we have one way to do it, and that's the very Japanese, probably, way of teach and pass down a teaching, to not modify anything. It's the way it is, and that's what all of us do. That's
exactly.
That's amazing. Right. Yeah. So, I have another question for you. It's would you say to a doctor or a health professional who feels a little bit drawn to Reiki but isn't sure whether to take the leap?
I would say the first thing would be to maybe experience it. You know, if you have never experienced something, then it's hard to know what it is, right? So I would say maybe experience it first. And then if anyone is interested in talking to me, I'm more than happy to share my years of experience with it because, again, my approach was 100% scientific. So it's not a belief.
Yeah.
It's
It's
observation
proven. Yeah.
many, many decades. So if they have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Oh, amazing. Well, I really hope that a lot of doctors, medical doctor, will come to you
I hope
and
so.
ask you questions. Yeah. And talking about that as well. So now this is a question that I usually ask to our guests, but usually about Usui Sensei.
Mhm.
But as you're a medical doctor, I change it a bit for you. So here's the question. If you had the chance to meet Chujiro Hayashi Sensei today, the direct student of Mikao Usui Sensei, that was also a medical doctor in the 1930s, what would you ask him or say to him?
Well, first of all, it would be an incredible honor to meet him. And I think it would be a very interesting conversation. I'm sure he'll be curious about, so how is Reiki doing in 2025? And I think he would be impressed with how medicine has advanced in terms of scientific discovery and pharmaceuticals. But at the same time, he would be very surprised to find out that research in Reiki is pretty much at the same stage as it was in the 1920s and 30s. I think I would imagine it would be such an interesting conversation. I think we could talk about how we could use Reiki for different conditions. What were the, his thoughts on using certain techniques for different ailments and with new scientific understanding of different illnesses. Maybe what could be the same or different. I think it would be absolutely a fascinating discussion. I think we would just probably talk about how doctors normally talk about patients, what could be beneficial. I think it would be just such a fascinating discussion. But in terms of questions, maybe I would ask him what brought him to Reiki and as a physician at that time, how because he did focus on Reiki predominantly in his practice eventually, in spite of being Western medicine trained physician.
That's right.
Because I feel very strongly that Reiki is such a remarkable, helpful modality that I definitely don't put it below Western medicine. I feel like it's on the same level, just a different modality. So it'd be fascinating to ask him how he felt and what drew him to Reiki and how his path shifted to Reiki. Because I feel even my path is shifting in the direction of Reiki more so, and it's almost in the past I saw Reiki as a complementary modality to Western medicine, but now I see that each of them can be very helpful to patients, and we shouldn't think one versus the other. And again, that's I'd love to see Reiki be more prevalent in medicine.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a conversation I would love to listen to.
I can imagine it would be so long.
Oh yeah, that could be days probably. How wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all these wonderful answers, Maria. Yeah, and thank you so much for this wonderful and interesting conversation as a whole. And yeah, for inspiring us, because it's not every day that I meet a doctor, that a medical doctor opened and that practices Reiki and talks about it openly also. A lot are a bit hidden, and
Yes.
this is really nice. So thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much for having me. Appreciate it.
And so, we'll meet again soon, I hope. Like, who knows where in the world? That's the only thing this time. Well, thank you again, Maria. ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again so much to Dr. Maria Danilichev. If you'd like to learn more about her, you can find her on her website sdreiki.com. You can also find her on Facebook or Instagram, San Diego Reiki. And if you want to dive deeper or learn more, all the links are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed what you heard, feel free to share it with someone you think might enjoy it too. Your support and your time mean so much to me. I'll see you very soon for another episode, and in the meantime, take care. ありがとうございました。